You are welcome once again to this network, Biblical Research and Innovation Network for Africa, Brain for Africa or BrainFA. I'm sure you are still enjoying the videos on the channel, and I do encourage you to subscribe if you have not already subscribed to this channel. Leviticus chapter 18 verse 21 reads, "Do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech." This is the NIV. Then Leviticus chapter 20 verse 2 also reads, "Any Israelite or any alien living in Israel who gives any of his children to Molech must be put to death. The people of the community are to stone him." From these two passages, God categorically condemns human sacrifice, which he commanded Israel not to do. Yet, in Genesis chapter 22, verse 1 following, we find God asking Abraham to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice. This raises the question, how could God condemn human sacrifice and yet ask Abraham to offer his son Isaac to him? Is our God a bloodthirsty God? This and some other questions are going to be answered in this video. I do encourage you to journey with me as we examine this thought-provoking issue. In examining this issue, there are at least 3 points to consider. First of all, a critical examination of the text in Genesis chapter 22, verse 1 following, indicates that God was not interested, nor did he plan, that Abraham should actually sacrifice his son Isaac. The event was meant to test Abraham's faith. In fact, when somebody comes to faith, the faith must grow, and the growth of the faith depends on the test put on it. And remember, test and temptation are not the same. Temptation is meant to put somebody into a condition that the person will sin. So that is the purpose of temptation. But in the case of a test is meant to grow someone's faith. And so God intended this request to help grow Abraham's faith. And we see from verse 12 that it was Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac, not the actual killing. Of course, Abraham did not actually kill Isaac. So it is not the actual killing that satisfied God. And God commended Abraham's faith, or God commended Abraham for attempting to sacrifice Isaac. So it was the attempt, his willingness, showing beyond doubt that he was really going to sacrifice Isaac. It was that which God was looking for, and not any kind of actual killing of Isaac. We find this in verse 12, where through the angel of the Lord, God declared that, "Now I know that you fear God, because you willingly want to sacrifice Isaac for me." So the first point is that it wasn't God's intention that Abraham should actually sacrifice Isaac, but he wanted to know if he was willing to do what he had requested. And the willingness was enough to satisfy God, that Abraham had great faith in God. Secondly, we need to note that the prohibitions in both Leviticus 18:21 and Leviticus 20 verse 2 were specifically against the offering of one's offspring to a pagan god that was known as Molech. Even if God actually wanted Abraham to sacrifice Isaac to him, we need to understand that sacrificing Isaac to God, who is the only true God and who owns our life and can take it at any point in time and decide when to take it and how to take it, is quite different from sacrificing a human being to a pagan god. The God of the Bible is the only true God, the one true God. And he can ask for anything, including lives, because he is the owner of all lives. And so if he actually wanted Isaac to be sacrificed, we cannot put the sacrifice of a human being to God and a sacrifice of a human being to a pagan god on the same level. We read from Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 39 and Job chapter 1 verse 21 that God is sovereign and he owns our life. Therefore, even if he really demands it, as he demanded the life of Jesus Christ, he has the right to demand it, and that wouldn't make God a sinner. But remember, I said earlier that it was Abraham's willingness which God was looking for, and that shows clearly in the account given to us in Genesis 22. At the end of the day, it was not the actual sacrifice that God was looking for, but to prove beyond all doubt that he was actually going to sacrifice him, because he was ready. Abraham was ready with a knife to cut and kill Isaac. If God had not stopped him, he would have done it. That is what God was looking for. So this second point is not to say that God actually wanted Isaac to be sacrificed. No, I'm only explaining that if he really wanted Isaac to be sacrificed, we cannot say that he doesn't have that right. He has that right. That is the point. The third point, which is also very important, is the polemic nature of the request. First of all, we need to know that in the culture in which Abraham lived, the ancient Near East culture, remember, Abraham was a pagan, and he had now come to God, and he was moving with God. From what he knew from his early stages in life, and from the environment in which he lived, pagan gods demanded the sacrifice of people's firstborn. The worshippers' firstborn. And this normally came under certain conditions. I'll mention at least 3 of such conditions. The first one was when somebody was in a state of calamity. Whenever there was a calamity that had befallen a family or a society, the sacrifice of the firstborn to the pagan god was requested. The second one is that in times of war, firstborns were sacrificed to ensure that people had victory. And thirdly, people sacrificed their firstborns to the gods that they worshipped in order to ensure bumper harvest. So these were the 3 main conditions that were associated with the sacrifice of the firstborn within the environment in which Abraham lived. So Abraham was used to that, and he knew that. Now, when you analyze the passage, you realize that God was telling Abraham something, that I've taken you from a pagan environment where you knew about the sacrifice of the firstborn. Now you have come to me, and this is a new environment. Here too, we take the firstborn, or here too, I request the sacrifice of the firstborn. But mine is different. When I request the sacrifice of the firstborn is not expected to be killed. The firstborn is expected to live. And God demonstrated this when he told Israel that they should consecrate their firstborns to him. Yet they were not supposed to kill the firstborns. On the day that the Passover event happened, God killed the firstborns of the Egyptians, including the firstborns of animals and of human beings. God spared the firstborns of the Israelites and said because of that they should consecrate the firstborns to him. So God takes the firstborn, but his is different. His case is different in the sense that he does not take them and kill them, but he takes them, consecrate them for his service, and let them live. And this kind of idea or theology is also evident in Romans chapter 12, verse 1-2, where we are told that Christians are expected to be living sacrifice. So God's sacrifice of the firstborn is a living sacrifice. The person lives, consecrates his or her life to God, and move on without being killed. So it was polemic in the sense that God was saying that this is what you know, but here it is different. The pagan gods take the firstborns and kill them. I also take the firstborn, but in a different form. I take the firstborn, and the firstborn should not be sacrificed, but should live. To sum up, the event that we see in Genesis chapter 22, verse 1 following, is an event of a test of Abraham's faith. It is also an event to show that even if God demands the sacrifice, the actual sacrifice of the firstborn, because God is the owner of everything, including lives, he has the right to do so. And more importantly, to show that God is different from the pagan gods. The God of the Bible is different from the pagan gods who take the firstborn and kill them. God takes the firstborn, consecrates them, makes them holy, sets them apart for his work. and for service to humanity. I'm sure that this explanation will go a long way to encourage you to read further on the subject, especially sacrifices in the ancient Near East. God richly bless you for watching. Bye for now.